My father threatened to have me arrested for raising my own siblings. When I asked him why, he said, "Because you're just their sister. Know your place." I was 11 when I learned how to warm a bottle in the dark without waking the neighbors. I was 13 when I signed my brother's permission slips because my mother was too tired and my father was too busy. By 15, I knew every allergy, every dosage, every school pickup time by heart, because if I didn't, no one else would. My parents weren't cruel in the way people expect. They didn't yell. They just weren't there. They smiled for the cameras, hosted dinners for coworkers, posted vacation photos while I stayed home boiling pasta for 3 kids who called me mom by accident more times than I could count. I stopped correcting them. I gave up college visits for my sister's chemo appointments. I gave up prom to sit in a pediatric ward at midnight. I told myself someone had to hold this family together, and it might as well be me. Then came my brother's high school graduation. My parents wore new clothes. My father shook hands with the principal like he'd built the school himself. And when my brother walked up to receive his diploma, he stopped at the microphone, looked past our parents, and said my name. He said I was the one who taught him to read, the one who sat up with him through fevers, the one who raised him while our parents were busy being admired. He called me his real mother in front of 400 people, and the auditorium went silent, then erupted. My father's face went the color of chalk. My mother grabbed her purse like it was on fire. Aunts and uncles who'd said nothing for years suddenly had plenty to say, right there in the parking lot, loud enough for everyone leaving the ceremony to hear. My parents left without saying goodbye to their own son. I thought that was the end of it. I thought the truth being spoken out loud might finally change something. I was wrong. My parents don't apologize. They retaliate. 2 weeks later, a woman from Child Protective Services knocked on my door with a clipboard and a folder full of my own handwriting, my color-coded medical calendars, my grocery lists, my notes to teachers. My parents had handed over every scrap of proof I'd been raising their children and called it evidence I'd assumed unauthorized guardianship of minors that weren't legally mine. They told the caseworker I was controlling, unstable, that I'd isolated the children from their real parents. They scrubbed their house top to bottom, bought new furniture, staged a family photo on the mantle like a crime scene cleanup. My mother cried on cue for the caseworker. My father called me troubled with a straight face. Then he called me himself, told me if I fought for custody, if I so much as mentioned a lawyer, he'd file a police report claiming I had taken his children without consent. He said the word kidnapping like it was a threat he'd rehearsed in the mirror. He said I was just the sister, that I needed to know my place. I hung up and sat on my bathroom floor for 20 minutes, listening to my little sister ask through the door if I was okay. I looked at her face, the same face I'd held through fevers and nightmares for a decade, and I understood something clearly for the first time. My parents weren't afraid of losing their children. They were afraid of losing control of the story. 3 days later, a patrol car pulled into my driveway. 2 officers walked to my door with my father's complaint in hand, and for the first time in my life, I understood exactly how far he was willing to go to make sure the world never called me anything but just the sister again. I didn't cry. I didn't argue with the officers on my porch. I just asked one question before I said another word. Was I actually being detained, or was I free to make a phone call first? The next morning, I called the lawyer my grandmother had already found. If you want part 2, comment part 2 below, and I'll post the rest of what happened with that lawyer, that report, and my parents.